Sword, Spells, and Sanctums.
Chapter 1. The Archer in the Veil. The sun dipped low over Valdoria's capital, painting the cobblestone streets of the main square in hues of gold and shadow. Merchants shouted their wares, freshly baked bread, gleaming steel blades, and exotic trinkets from distant Azarion, while children wove through the crowd, their laughter blending with the clatter of hooves and the rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer. The air thrummed with the vibrant pulse of life, a testament to Valdoria's pride as a kingdom of skilled horsemen. Yet beneath the bustling normalcy, a ripple of unease stirred as a woman's desperate cries sliced through the noise.
"Help! Please, someone!" Her voice cracked, raw with panic as she stumbled into the square, her homespun dress torn and streaked with mud. Her eyes, wide with terror, darted across the faces of startled onlookers. "My son, he's dying. My husband went to the verdant vale for the healing mushroom, but he hasn't come back." The crowd parted, murmuring with concern, as two armored figures approached. The first was Sir Kaelron, Knight Captain of Valdoria, his presence commanding despite the lines of age etched into his weathered face. His silver-streaked hair gleamed beneath his helm, and his deep blue eyes radiated wisdom and compassion. Beside him stood Finn, a lanky 16-year-old squire with a mop of chestnut hair and an earnest smile that belied his inexperience. Finn's spear rested lightly on his shoulder, his shield polished to a mirror sheen as if enthusiasm alone could forge him into a knight. Kaelron raised a gauntleted hand, silencing the crowd.
"Speak, good woman,"
he said, his voice steady but warm.
"What has happened?"
The woman, trembling, clutched her shawl. "My boy, Theron, he's got the wasting fever. The healers say only the mooncap mushroom can save him, but it grows deep in the verdant vale. My husband, Joran, went to find it yesterday. He promised to return by dawn, but..." She broke into a sob. "He's still out there, and the forest is crawling with monsters." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The verdant vale, a dense forest straddling the border between Valdoria and Seraphiel, was no place for an untrained man. Its towering trees, cloaked in mist, hid both mystical wonders and deadly perils. Whispers had spread in recent months of corrupted creatures, beasts twisted by the Demon King Malgrin's dark influence, lurking within, severing trade routes and isolating the kingdoms. Kaelron's brow furrowed, but his resolve remained unshaken. He turned to the two young men waiting at his side, their armor gleaming in the fading light. Theron, 18 and broad-shouldered, stood with his shield raised instinctively, his dark eyes scanning the crowd as if assessing threats even year. His short-cropped black hair framed a face marked with quiet determination, his every movement deliberate, honed by years of defensive training. Beside him, Garan, leaner but no less formidable, exuded a restless energy. He checked his dual swords, their edges catching the last rays of sunlight in a mirrored gleam. He twirled one blade with a flourish, his grin betraying his eagerness for the mission.
"Theron, Garan,"
said Kaelron, his tone carrying the weight of a mentor's trust.
"this is no mere errand. The verdant vale tests even the bravest. Lead a patrol of 6 men to find Joran and bring him back safely. This is a chance to prove your leadership and courage."
Theron routed solemnly, his mind already calculating the dangers ahead.
"We'll find him, Sir Kaelron. No one will be left behind."
Garan's grin widened, his green eyes glinting with excitement.
A romp through the forest? Sounds like my kind of lesson.
He clapped Theron on the shoulder, the gesture brimming with the easy camaraderie they built under Kaelron's tutelage.
Finn stepped forward, his voice eager.
Sir, let me go with them. I can help. I know I can.
Kaelron placed a hand on Finn's shoulder, his expression softening.
Your time will come, Finn. For now, stay here and help me hold the castle. Theron and Garen need to face this trial together.
Finn's shoulders slumped, but he nodded, his optimism undimmed.
Yeah, sir. I'll keep things in order here.
As the crowd dispersed, Theron and Garen gathered their patrol, 6 seasoned Valdorian horsemen, each armed with spear and sword. The group mounted their steeds, the clink of armor and the snort of horses filling the air. Theron adjusted his shield, its weight a familiar comfort, while Garen sheathed his dual swords with a flourish, their blades whispering against their scabbards. With a final nod to Kaelron, they rode out, the road to the verdant vale stretching before them. The verdant vale loomed like a living wall, its ancient trees woven with vines that seemed to pulse with faint, unnatural light. Mist curled through the undergrowth, muffling sounds and casting eerie shadows. The patrol dismounted at the forest's edge, tying their horses to gnarled roots. Theron's eyes narrowed as he scanned the tree line, his instincts honed to detect the slightest irregularity. The air felt heavy, charged with a presence that set his nerves on edge.
Stay sharp,
he said, his voice low.
Something's wrong here. The forest is too quiet.
Garen chuckled, twirling one of his swords.
You worry too much, Theron. It's just a forest. We'll find his Joran, grab his mushroom, and peep back for supper.
One of the horsemen, a grizzled veteran named Torin, grunted. The vale's changed, lad. It used to be you'd hear birds, maybe a wolf. Now it's like the trees themselves are holding their breath. Theron nodded, his gaze catching a faint trail of broken branches.
This way. Someone's been through here recently.
The patrol moved cautiously, their boots sinking into the damp earth. The deeper they ventured, the thicker the mist grew, until visibility shrunk to a few paces. Strange sounds, low growls, the snap of twigs kept them on edge. Theron's shield stayed raised, his eyes darting to every shadow, while Garen strode ahead, his dual swords ready, his confidence unshaken. After an hour, a faint cry pierced the fog. Theron signaled for silence, his ears straining. The cry came again, followed by the unmistakable twang of a bowstring and a guttural roar. The patrol quickened their pace, weaving through gnarled trees, until they reached a small clearing. There, illuminated by shafts of dim light filtering through the canopy, a desperate scene unfolded. A man, Joran, by his tattered farmer's clothes, huddled against a tree, clutching a bloodied arm. Above him stood a lone archer, her movements fluid and precise, as she loosed arrow after arrow at a monstrous, dire-horned bear. The beast, twice the size of a normal bear, roared with unnatural fury, its eyes glowing a sickly red. 2 curling horns sprouted from its skull, and its matted fur shimmered with dark energy. The archer's quiver was nearly empty, her arrows barely slowing the beast. She wore a dark green cloak that blended with the forest, her chestnut-brown hair tied back in a practical braid. Her face, though streaked with dirt, carried an elegance that seemed out of place in the wild. Yet her strength was waning. The bear lunged, its massive paws swiping inches from her chest. Theron's mind raced, his keen, analytical eye dissecting the bear's movements. Its aggression was unnatural. its attacks too coordinated, as if driven by a dark force. He spotted a flaw. Its right side was slower, favoring the left in each charge, likely due to the demonic energy concentrated in its horns.
Demonic influence?
He muttered, recalling rumors of Malgrin's corruption seeping into the Vale. He turned to the patrol.
Protect Yoren. I'll cover the archer.
Garin drew his dual swords, their blades glinting with a faint blue sheen, as if infused with a watery glow.
Leave the beast to me,
he said, his grin fierce, his eyes locking onto Theron's with a nod that spoke of unspoken trust. Theron sprinted forward, shield raised, and positioned himself between Joran and the bear. The wounded man gasped, his face pale. "The mushroom, I found it, but that thing came out of nowhere."
Stay down,
Theron ordered, his voice calm but firm. He glanced at the archer, noting the silverwood tips of her arrows, rare, expensive, and native only to Seraphiel. Suspicion flickered in his mind, but there was no time to dwell. The bear roared, charging the archer again. She loosed her final arrow, striking its shoulder, but the beast barely flinched. As it reared up, claws gleaming, Theron activated his ironed bastion skill. His shield glowed with a faint silver light, its surface hardening as if forged from unyielding stone. The skill anchored him to the ground, amplifying his defensive stance to absorb even the mightiest blows. He stepped in front of the archer, his shield meeting a bone-rattling claw strike. The impact reverberated through his arm, but Iron's bastion held, redirecting the bear's momentum and exposing its right side. Theron's eyes caught the flaw again. The bear's overcommitted swing left a fleeting opening, one only Garen's speed could exploit.
Garin, now!
Theron shouted, his voice steady, trusting his friend to seize the moment. Garin, already in motion, answered with a fierce cry.
Tidal slash!
His dual swords ignited with surging blue energy, water magic coursing through the blades like a rushing river. He spun forward, his movements a blur of precision and power, the swords weaving a dance of steel and liquid light. The first blade slashed across the bear's exposed flank, the water magic amplifying the strike into a torrent that tore through fur and flesh, sending dark ichor spraying in a shimmering arc. The second blade arced upward, aimed at the bear's head. The tidal slash unleashed a crescent of water that roared like a breaking wave, slicing into one of the bear's horns. The horn shattered in a burst of dark energy, the bear's roars turning to pained shrieks as it staggered. Theron, reading the bear's faltering counterattack, adjusted his stance. The bear swiped again, its claws aimed at Garen's exposed side. Theron's iron bastion flared brighter, his shield intercepting the blow with a resonant clang. The skill's power redirected the force, throwing the bear off balance and creating another precious opening.
The other horn,
Theron called, his voice a beacon of calm amidst the chaos, his trust in Garin absolute. Garin nodded, his eyes blazing with determination.
tidal slash!
He roared again, his dual swords spinning in a whirlwind of water and steel. The blades glowed brighter, the water magic coalescing into a spiraling vortex that trailed behind each strike. He lunged, the first sword parrying a weak claw swipe, the second slashing through the air like crashing waves. The vortex struck the remaining horn, shattering in an explosion of red light and dark mist. The bear collapsed, its body dissolving into black vapor that dissipated into the air, leaving only silence in its wake. The clearing fell still, save for the heavy breathing of the patrol. Joran clutched a small pouch, his fingers trembling as he revealed the mooncap mushroom inside. for my boy," he whispered. The archer knelt beside him, checking his wounds with practiced care.
"You'll live,"
she said, her tone brisk but kind. She stood, turning to Theron and Garen.
"Thank you. I thought I could handle it alone, but—"
She trailed off, her gaze lingering on Garen, whose hands shimmered faintly with residual water energy, before he shook it off, his charming grin returning.
No trouble at all.
Garen said, sheathing his dual swords with a flourish.
Name's Garen, and this is Theron. Who might you be?
"Erica,"
she said, her voice steady, but her eyes guarded. Theron noted the slight hesitation, the way her hand brushed the silverwood-tipped arrow in her quiver. Only Seraphiel's elite used such materials. He kept his suspicions to himself, his analytical mind cataloging the detail for later.
We need to get Joran back to Valdoria,
Theron said, helping the man to his feet.
Can you walk?
Jaren nodded weakly, supported by 2 horsemen. Erica adjusted her cloak, her movements graceful despite the dirt and blood on her hands.
"I'll come with you to the forest's edge,"
she said.
"The Vale's gotten worse lately. You'll need all the eyes you can get."
The patrol moved swiftly, Theron and Garen taking point, while Erica walked beside them, her bow at the ready. Theron observed her closely, noting her familiarity with the forest's paths. She moved like someone trained for more than hunting, her steps silent and deliberate. Garen, meanwhile, chatted easily with her, his charm drawing a rare smile from her lips.
You're not half bad with that bow,
Garen said, glancing at her quiver.
Where'd you learn to shoot like that?
"Here and there,"
Erica replied.
"The Vale's a good teacher if you survive it."
Theron's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. The dynamic between Garen's bold confidence and Erica's guarded elegance intrigued him. Garen's heroism, amplified by the dazzling display of his title slash, had clearly impressed her, but there was something more, something she wasn't saying. As they reached the forest's edge, the mist parted, revealing Valdoria's plains. Joran, now steadier, thanked them profusely, clutching the mushroom like a lifeline. Erica paused, her gaze lingering on Garen.
"You're brave, both of you,"
she said, her voice softening.
"Maybe we'll cross paths again."
Garen winked, his dual swords glinting as he adjusted them.
I'd like that, Erica.
She smiled, a knowing glint in her eyes, and turned to vanish into the trees. Theron watched her go, his mind racing. The silverwood arrows, her skill, her secrecy. Erica was no ordinary archer. As the patrol mounted their horses and rode back to Valdoria, Theron couldn't shake the feeling that their encounter in the Vale was only the beginning of something far greater and far more dangerous. The sun sank below the horizon, casting the verdant Vale in shadow. In the distance, a low growl echoed, too faint for the others to hear. Theron tightened his grip on his shield, his instincts whispering of darker forces stirring. The Demon King's shadow was growing, and the threads of fate were weaving a tapestry of conflict that would test them all.